Good afternoon. In this video, we're going to go over this week's options watch list. Before I get into the watch list, if you're not in the room, you can find the link in the description of the video and in my bio section of social media accounts. Also, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now the put to call ratio is at 0.48, so it's pretty low right now. A lot of people are on the call side. The economic calendar for the week, let's see. Monday, Empire State Manufacturing Index at 8:30. Tuesday we have core retail sales. Wednesday we have nothing Wednesday. Thursday, unemployment claims, existing home sales. And Friday we have nothing. So with that said, we get earnings coming up. Now, the thing that I want to mention about the earnings is that we have banks coming out this week, and usually you don't have Netflix or Tesla releasing their earnings at the same time as the banks, so that's kind of different. I mean, they probably have in the past, but I don't really remember it. Usually it's the banks, then you get the tech next week or the week after. So yeah, Netflix and Tesla after close, and IBM after close on Wednesday, and within the same week as the bank. So I kind of find that rather odd, but we'll have to see what happens. With that said, I have VIX up, and VIX right now is at 1334. It's pretty low. I mean, it can definitely get underneath 13. It has popped each time it's got onto 13 here, and just had a nice little pop. But for some reason, if it does manage to get under 13, 12 will be probably a pretty hard floor right here. It doesn't like to get under 12. There's so much going on in the world right now that it shouldn't even be as low as it is, but it is. So VIX is just getting crushed. So at some point it could get under 13. I don't think it will. If it does, it will be not very long, and if it gets under 12, it's definitely going to be a good long-term play for at least a few weeks for VIX calls or SPY puts or something. But VIX has been getting crushed, and when VIX pops, has these like big pops, sometimes SPY doesn't really drop it that much. Like we saw the other day, VIX popped right here from 13 to 17, and SPY didn't really drop that much. So it might be better just to grab calls on VIX if you decide to do that. Just remember, this is for educational purposes only. This is not telling you what to buy, when to buy, or anything like that. This is for educational purposes only. Just giving my thoughts of how I see things and stuff like that. So VIX definitely could liven up soon, especially with banks reporting this week and other tech reporting next week or so. So SPY SPY is outside the Keltner channel on the weekly. It's not really too far overbought on the weekly RSI, but it does have a bearish divergence going on the daily. You get the price here and the higher high on the prices, but the RSI and the histogram are making lower highs. So definitely a big bearish divergence going on. Then you also get some right here going on with the histogram on the weekly. So pretty bigger one right there, but the bearish divergence is definitely there. Who knows if it will play out this week? Maybe the banks will upset the markets a little bit and end up pulling back, but who knows? The interest rates going up, maybe they made more money. Anything's possible. Anytime SPY starts to take off, it pulls back a little bit, takes off, pulls back. So I mean, if it does end up dropping underneath 448, it could fill the gap here at 447, 445, and then you get the gap right here at 444, and you get the 440 area, then 435, and you got 430. So it could come down here to the 440 area and bounce off the 20 EMA, which is this white line, which it has right here. Came pretty close right here, and could end up pulling back just enough. I mean, it's if it does pull back, and if it's because of the earnings, the bank earnings or whatever, it could end up pulling back. Then it could end up taking off again for anticipation of good tech earnings. But who knows? I'm going to get into the tech stuff in a second. So, but definitely keep an eye on it, even over 451 for a push to 455, 460. I mean, to me, if it gets to 460 and it breaks out, I mean, might as well just go to all-time high. But we'll have to see. We don't know what's going to cause the next pullback, if it's going to be the earnings, bank earnings, tech earnings, or the Ukraine war, or Russia, or anything else that goes on. There's so much going on in the world. Inflation, even though the inflation numbers are going down, the government numbers are going down. But the retail, you go shopping or retail, it's not going down whatsoever. And the government numbers are the only ones going down, but the real world life stuff you buy is not going down. So to me, I just think the government numbers is just to make the government look good, make Biden look good for elections. So to me, it's all I think the government numbers is a scam and it's all bullshit. But it doesn't matter what I think, or it's just the government. I mean, not the government, the market, how it takes the numbers and stuff like that. So with that said, pretty much covered SPY, what I'm thinking on that, but be watching it on both directions. That's why I need to be in the room. We wait pre-market, see what it does overnight, make our morning decision which way I'm looking at it and stuff like that. So now with Apple, the thing I want to point out, Apple, a lot of the tech earnings are coming out next week. If this does manage to break out over the 195, might as well just push to 200 at this point. But we'll have to see if SPY does end up taking off, gets over this 192 area. It's probably going to go all-time high, and if it does break out at all-time high, it could definitely push to 200. But RSI is coming down a little bit. It's definitely overbought on the weekly, but it is coming down on the daily, which suggests that it could push a little more going into earnings. And the thing that I want to point out is I don't really recall the last time a lot of these tech companies, a lot of them like Meta, Apple, Microsoft, NVDA. Well, NVIDIA is a little different, but NVIDIA has already had its earnings, but fairly recently. But Meta, Apple, and Microsoft is coming up in the next couple weeks. I don't recall being so overbought on the weekly RSI and beating on earnings too. I just don't recall it happening. I mean, I'm not saying it hasn't, because I'm sure maybe it has, but I think that we're going to end up seeing a tech wreck. What causes it? If it's something political, or something war related, or something random, or if it's actually earnings itself, I think that we're going to end up seeing a tech wreck at some point. I just don't know what's going to cause it and when it's going to happen. But I don't think that I recall the RSI being well above 70, 80 on some of the other ones, which I'll get to soon, and actually beating on earnings. So scenario is if the tech companies keep going into earnings, I'm thinking that we'll end up probably seeing a sell-off into earnings. But if it does sell off before earnings could be the rebound factor and getting it back up. It could pull back enough for the RSI to cool off, and earnings be decent or good or some hope or whatever, and they're going more. So it could definitely go either way on that point. I think one of the two is going to end up happening. Which one of the two, I have no idea. We'll just have to keep an eye on that. BA is another one I'm keeping an eye on. BA's got earnings coming up too. It's stuck in that 220 to 200 area. I think personally, I think that when was the earnings? I think it was like the end of the month on BA, on 26th, which is next week. But the thing I'm thinking about this is that if it does manage to break out before earnings, or if it does break out with earnings, that I think that what they've been doing is they've been sticking it in this channel and getting so many people so used to shorting at 220 and 215 area and buying the dip at 200. I think one of these times it's just going to end up flushing through or breaking out of this area. So to me, this could be if it gets back up to 220 and people stop piling and puts things, it's going to stay in the range. I think it's going to pop, and it's going to flood, and it's going to range to 225, 230. But if some reason, if earnings could be the factor that pushes it through to 220 and to 230 and 240. But if earnings is bad, or if it gets back down to the bottom of the channel, gets down to 200, it could flush through. I think it's been staying in this channel way too long. It's going to break down or break out at some point. Maybe earnings is the catalyst that gets it through. It's got to invert a head and shoulders. You get the left, you get the head. It's kind of like a channeled head and shoulders. You can definitely see there's a right shoulder here, and this could be a big head right there, and this could be the right shoulder. So pattern wise, it's saying bullish, but who knows? BA is not very good with earnings, even though its earnings have been kind of improving a little bit off and on over the last year. So maybe that's what's going to get it to break out. I don't know. We'll have to see. Microsoft is another one. I don't know why Microsoft just didn't type up. Microsoft, it's banging its head at 350. You can see divergence going on right there with the RSI, the MACD. It's even the histogram. Histogram is going down. RSI is going down on the weekly as it's staying flat at the 350. So this is going to be tricky. It could stay in this area, this 350 to 330 area, until earnings. So but it could also break out. So I would keep an open mind open for Microsoft until earnings. So for this week, if it gets underneath 345, 344, get a push down to 340. Got some gaps here at 335 to 330. But if it does manage to get over 350, 351, it can make a nice little push to 360 and with some ER hopium with that. So Netflix and Tesla, having ER, that may start the if Netflix and Tesla don't do well with earnings, that could end up getting the market a little paranoid and skeptical of the earnings. If it's good, they could get a little bit of hopium behind it and get some hopium in the more behind the tech for that. So NVDA, another one behind it. This thing, it's just every time it starts to get a little bit of weakness, it pops more. Weakness pops more. The RSI is way above 80. You got bearish divergence been going on for weeks. And on the weekly right here, it's just so crazy. The RSI, you'd think it'd pull back at some point. I'd watch it on the 450 for push down to 440, 425, 410, 400, big psychological number. Then down here at the 380 area. I know that seems like a lot, pretty far. 400 seems like a 50-point drop, but we went from 380 to 450. That's a 30-point drop in one day. It can definitely move. It's been going crazy. So who knows if NVIDIA will pull back or not. But it's just RSI is well above 85. It's got to get some relief and stuff like that. So Meta is another one that's got earnings. To me, this is the thing I'm looking at. It's RSI on the weekly, it's 80 going into earnings. If it doesn't pull back before earnings, I think it's going to end up dumping on earnings. I could be completely wrong. Don't go out and buy puts. I don't play earnings. Earnings are a crapshoot and a gamble. I'm just spitting my thoughts. Like I said earlier, 80 RSI going into earnings. You don't see these high RSI on the weekly and end up going up more on ER. This could be a completely hopium ER run, and plus I don't like what Meta is doing, Facebook is doing. They have this new Threads. It's supposed to compete with Twitter or be a Twitter killer, whatever. It's all complete crap. But they're you can't delete your Threads account, because if you do, you delete your Instagram. I don't know if your Facebook account's attached to it, but I know that your Instagram is definitely attached to it. So basically, they're making you open your Threads account and holding the users hostage, and I think that's a real scummy move, and Google does that all the time. So Facebook, Meta is doing that, holding people hostage. You sign up for their new great platform, then you want to delete it because it sucks, and you can't because it's tied to your Instagram, and you delete Instagram, and people, that's just a really scummy move by Zuckerberg and all of Facebook. So I don't like that. I think that's going to come back to haunt them. I think Facebook's out of ideas. They lost a bunch of money on the multiverse. So I think that was stupid too. Zuckerberg's out of ideas, so he never really had any ideas. He was too busy stealing other people's shit. So he's a low life scumbag in my opinion. But he's rich, so he can't. I mean, he's doesn't have any ideas. He has no innovation. He just likes to steal stuff, kind of like Google. Google does the same thing. Their whole innovation is just stealing and copying other people. Everything Google has done has been a carbon copy of something else. So, anyways, I know I'm ranting a little bit, but RSI is really high. I can't imagine them doing really well with earnings. I think they'll end up coming down on that. So I'd watch it. Like I said, if it doesn't pull back for earnings, I think earnings will pull back. So I would watch it underneath 305, push to 300, then to 290, 280, 275, 270, 265. Basically every $5 until you get down to the 250 area, which will be a big psychological number, and the Mill-Keltner channel right down here. So I think Meta's going to end up pulling back. So I could be completely wrong, but to me, I think it's going to. I don't usually cover the Qs because I just don't normally, but because I'm doing the challenge, I'm gonna look at it more. I've been kind of watching it day by day to get kind of familiar with it. I think the same thing's gonna happen. The Qs follow tech. One of the things I want to point out, I've been noticing. I've noticed a while ago, but I've been watching it more. But when you have a SPY a higher day or breaking higher day, big QQQ is way above its higher day. So it does. Not follow, but it does act the same way. It does kind of look the same way, but the intraday patterns are kind of different. When SPY is at a higher day, QQQ ends up being at a lot higher than its higher day. Or if the SPY is at lower day, QQQ may not be at its lower day. So the patterns do look different, and it does look a little bit of different. So it'll be fun. I'm kind of excited to play the Qs in the challenge. And so if Qs follow tech, and if my prediction with tech comes right, I mean, look at the weekly RSIs at above 75, get a bearish divergence going on, RSI is going lower, histogram's lower, MACD is lower, and the price is getting higher. You got bearish divergence going on multiple indicators on multiple time frames, especially the larger time frames, which end up having more weight, and they end up playing out. But sometimes they just take weeks, days, weeks, even months to play out. And we'll have to see if Instagram, if earnings does end up being a factor for the Qs and end up pulling back. So I'll be watching it either direction underneath 375 or over 382. We can even say in a 378 for push down to 375, fill the gap here, fill the gap here at 370, and get that 365 area, which is a pivot right here, because there's resistance and it's support on the hourly. So it could get down to the 365 and the RCT trend line and 20 EMAs right there. So that's going to be a really major area, key area for the Qs to bounce. So if it does end up breaking out over 382, it's got a room to 385, 390, 395, 400. 400 could be the actual magnet, but we'll have to see. It's all going to be dependent on what happens with the earnings and tech. So that's going to do it with the watch list. You're going to need to be in the room. We're going to take it day by day and news event by news event, and that's why you need to be in the room. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the room.